You've seen the title of the video, so let's just get into it. For this video, I've already replaced most of the Infector's default animation with Mixamo animations. Let me know in the comment section down below if you want a dedicated tutorial for it. Let's start with adding a weapon to the player character. On the hierarchy window, click on the triangle next to the player character object. One by one, open the root, hips, spine, chest, upper chest, right shoulder, right upper arm, right lower arm, and right hand. Inside this right hand, create an empty game object called Weapon Equip R. In the project window, open the prefab folder and drag the sword prefab to Weapon Equip R. Click on Weapon Equip R in the hierarchy window, then change the transform position and rotation so that the player grips the sword right in the animation. You can repeat this process for the left hand by using these numbers, just in case you want to have a double wielding character. If we go into the play mode, we can see that the player is now gripping the sword right. Now it's time to add the attack animations into the animator. This video will focus on modifying Infector's free third-person character controller. This step might be slightly different if you use a different character controller in your project. Let's start with selecting our playable character in the hierarchy window. Then open the animator window. Open the Layers tab, and let's create a new layer called Attacks. Click on the gear icon next to the attack layer and change its weight to 1. The idea here is that we're going to override any animation with our attack animation when we do any attack. If you can find the animation nodes in the animator window, press F on your keyboard to recenter everything in the animator window. Right-click on the empty spot and create an empty state. Click on this state and rename it in the inspector window to empty. This will be the default state when our character is not attacking, which will allow other animations in other layers to play. Now, let's add our attack animations in. In the project window, open the Animations folder and open the Player folder. Drag all 3 attack animations into the animator window and arrange the 3 attack animations to look like this. Let's make the transition between animations. Right-click on Attack 1 state, choose Make Transition, and connect it to Attack 2. Then from Attack 2 to Attack 3. Then connect all attack states to the empty state. Then finally, connect empty state to Attack 1. To trigger these animations, open the Parameters tab and add a new trigger parameter. Rename it to Attack. Now comes the important part, adjusting the transitions. Click on the arrow from the empty state to Attack 1. In the inspector window, uncheck the Has Exit Time option and add a new condition for our attack trigger parameter. Next, click on the arrow from Attack 1 to Attack 2. This time, just add the new attack condition. Same goes for the arrow from Attack 2 to Attack 3. And that's pretty much it. These are both optional, but you can make the transition duration last longer, or set an offset by moving the graph below to make the transition smoother. To test our animation, make sure that the character is selected in the inspector window and click on the circle next to the attack parameter. If you time it right, you should be able to switch to the next attack sequence. If you're late, you will return to idle animation. Now let's create a proper attack control for our character. Let's create a new script called Attack Control and open it in Visual Studio. This is a very simple script for calling the attack trigger in the animator when we press left-click on the mouse. Save the script and return to Unity. Add this script to the player character in the inspector window and enter Play Mode. Our character will now attack when we left-click the mouse. Now it's time to set up a hitbox for the sword. Once again, open up the sword object in the character's hand. Then, on the inspector window, let's add a box collider component. You can adjust the collider by using the Edit Bounding Volume icon or by entering the values directly. If you didn't see the hitbox in the scene, activate the gizmo icon in the top right side of the scene window. Enable the Is Trigger option because we don't want this collider to be a solid object. Of course, if you go into the play mode now, it won't do anything to the enemy because we haven't scripted anything to happen when the collider hits the enemy. But first, we need to be able to tell Unity how to differentiate between the player and the enemy. Otherwise, the player's weapon might actually hurt our own character when swinging the sword. The easiest way to do it is to use tags. Let's click on the player character in the hierarchy window and assign the player tag in the inspector window. For the enemy character, we will need to add a new tag called enemy before assigning it to them. Now let's create a new script called Weapon Attributes and open it in Visual Studio. There are many different ways to deal damage to the enemy, but let's keep it simple. First, we need a reference to the player's attribute manager to get the player's attack value. We'll use the onTriggerEnter function because this function will be called whenever there is any object that collides with the sword collider we set earlier. It will also give us the identity of the collider we collide with. We then can use this identity to check if it's an enemy. If it does, then we'll get its attributes manager to have it take damage from our player's attack value. Save the script and return to Unity. Now let's add this new script into our sword. And don't forget to add the player as the attributes manager reference. When we go into the play mode, when we hit the enemy, we can see the damage pop-up numbers popping in, which means that it works. There is just a bit of a problem. We actually don't need to attack to damage the enemy at all. Let's fix that. Let's create a new script called Weapon Manager and open it in Visual Studio. The purpose of this script is to create a function to enable or disable the collider of the weapon through the animation. To do that, first, we need a reference to the weapon the player is holding. Then, we'll create a new function called Enable Weapon Collider with an integer parameter where 0 is false and 1 is true. Why don't we use Boolean instead? I'm going to explain it later. Inside this function, we first want to check if the player is holding a weapon to avoid errors. Then, we'll also check if the weapon has a collider, once again to avoid errors. Finally, we turn the collider on and off depending on the parameter. Save the script and return to Unity. Let's add this new script into our player character. And don't forget to assign the player's weapon to the reference field. Now, in the hierarchy window, double-click on our character to center them in the scene window. Then open the animation window. Let's select our Attack 1 animation from the drop-down menu, and then we want to find a moment in the animation just before the character begins to swing her sword. Here, we want to press this button called Add Event. This will create a little pointer on top of the animation timeline. Click on that pointer. On the inspector window, we can now see a drop-down menu. Open it and select the Enable Weapon Collider function. Set the integer to 1 to enable the colliders. Add one more animation event when the player stops swinging her sword, but this time leave the integer at 0 instead. Do this again for the other two attack animations. By the way, this is why we use an integer parameter instead of boolean. It's because this animation event doesn't show a function with boolean parameters. Strange, I know. Let's go into the play mode again. Let's first test if the character's sword deals damage when we move around the enemies. Nope, nothing happened. Now if we attack the enemy, it deals damage. Nice. So there we go. Wait, we're not yet done. There is one last thing we need to fix. This. Our character can slide when we're attacking. Unless this is your intended gameplay, we should probably fix that. To do that, we need to modify the character controller's internal code. Unfortunately, this step is only applicable to Infector character controller. First, in the project window, search for the V third-person motor script and open it in Visual Studio. Open the internal variable region by clicking on the button on the left side of the screen. We're looking for two variables, lock movement and lock rotation. We want to change the internal keyword to public so we can access it from other scripts. Then, let's use Visual Studio's search function by tapping Ctrl F on our keyboard and type in stop move equals false. This will instantly take us to the check slope limit function. We want to replace it with this. This is what we call a ternary operator. It is similar to this, but condensed into a shorter form. Save the script and return to Unity. Open the Weapon Manager script again. This time, we want to add a new function that will enable or disable lock movement and lock rotation variables. But first, we need a reference to the Infector's V third-person controller script. The new function, Enable Movement, is very simple. It just enables and disables lock movement and lock rotation variables. Save the script and return to Unity. Don't forget to fill the TPC field with our character's character controller. The final step is to call this function to disable movement during the attack animation and enable movement when we're not in the attack animation. But we can't add them as animation events. That just doesn't work. Instead, we need to open the animator again and click on the Attack 1 state. In the inspector, click on Add Component and type in Movement Disabler. Hit Enter and click Create and Add. Then open this script in Visual Studio. Right away, you'll notice that this script doesn't look like our regular script. That's because this is not a usual mono behavior script. This is a state machine behavior script, made to work specifically for controlling how the animator should work. Let's start with adding our own reference to the Weapon Manager script. Then, let's uncomment the onStateEnter function by erasing the two / symbols in front of every line. OnStateEnter is like the start or awake function in our regular mono behavior script. It runs when a state animation is about to start in the animator. So here, we can use our regular getComponent function. Now, we want a way to choose whether we should enable or disable movement. We could use a regular Boolean variable, but let's be more adventurous. Let me teach you the wonders of enums, which will allow you to create a drop-down menu to choose from in the inspector. Let's define a new enum called Options. This enum will contain options to enable or disable the movement. We still need to create a variable for this enum, so let's call it Enable Movement. In the onStateEnter function, we check the enum to enable or disable movement. Save the script and return to Unity. Let's add this script to the other two attack states by selecting their state, click on Add Behavior on the inspector window, and choose our movement disabler script. Then set its enable movement field to disable. Then we also add movement disabler on the empty state, but leave it as enable. Let's go into play mode. Now our character can only move when the animation is over. And that's pretty much it. This is part 3 on the series of making a full 3D melee combat game, so consider subscribing and ring the bell so you'll be notified when a new tutorial comes up. Feel free to leave any questions in the comment section down below, or join our official Discord server and ask it in the forum. Also, feel free to support me on the new Ko-fi page. And with that, I think I'll see you guys later. Goodbye.